Hello there, and welcome to the Mindfulness Zone. I'm Vinod Ravindranathan, and today I will take you through a meditation that will hopefully allow you to have that much needed break from the constant chatter of the mind. Please do visit me at www.mindfulness.zone. That's www.mindfulness.zone for more recordings and perhaps to join me in one of my live meditations. Before we begin, I just wanted you to know that during this hour-long meditation, you will find many gaps of silence. You will notice space between my words. And these have intentionally been placed there. So you may mistakenly believe that you've lost your signal or accidentally hit the pause button. But these gaps of silence are just there to give you an opportunity to feel, to experience, to step back into the stillness and explore the tools which my voice will be guiding you towards. Before I begin, I just wanted to thank you for joining me in our practice today. This is our practice. So I really hope you enjoy it as much as I know I will. A good starting point. I know we've all done some form of meditation before. We're all coming from perhaps one or perhaps numerous different practices. And so it's very easy to enter into this practice today with expectations. Because I know that, I've had quite a few practices that have been amazing and some that have been less than amazing. And I'm sure it's the same for you. And that's why in this particular practice, the one that many people label as mindfulness, practitioners are encouraged to bring into the practice right at the beginning a quality called the beginner's mind. And that's simply where during the process of the practice, we gently begin to release all these past practices that we have been through, these meditation practices. Because the good practices, as good as they were, they're going to create standards within our mind, standards that we will always aspire to reach. And when a particular practice does not match it, we'll find ourselves becoming agitated and perhaps a little bit disappointed. And then, of course, there are those past practices in meditation which were rather challenging, which the mind was moving in so many different directions, and you were feeling very agitated. And even those would leave an imprint where you're going to expect today's practice to be a little bit challenging. You're going to wonder, what am I going to experience? Am I going to get anything out of it? And that's where beginner's mind comes in. Where this becomes the first practice. And whatever we find in today's practice, we'll just go with it. It doesn't matter if the doorbell rings. And I must warn you, my doorbell might ring because there may be a delivery or two. It doesn't matter what's happening in your own environment. If the neighbor is playing the radio or the television too loudly, if there's traffic or voices outside of your door, we're going to give permission for all of these disturbances, these variables that we cannot control. We're also going to give ourselves permission to simply experience all that we experience in today's practice. Because what's important about the practice is really just our awareness. If we do find ourselves thinking, overthinking, agitated, we turn these into tools in our practice, aids in our practice, so that we can simply be aware of these happenings within the mind, these happenings within the body. And that is our practice today. This awareness of all that is happening around us. You may be wondering that you may have come into this virtual room, into this practice, believing that we were going to silence the mind, we were going to shut off our thinking process. But this isn't the aim of the practice. Our aim is simply to be aware of these movements. But you will be consoled in the knowledge that through this awareness of these movements, of this agitation, of whatever it is that you may be experiencing, through this awareness, we will find ourselves creating space between that who we truly are, this witnessing presence, full of kindness, full of understanding, full of patience. Space between this part of ourselves and the thoughts and these movements and the sensations that we experience through the body. And as we create this space, as we find this space, because this space is always there. And this is a practice where we step back into this space. As we step into this space, we begin to remove the very source that powers the thought process, that power source, that energy source that creates the whole momentum of the mind. And what we will find is, just as we turn off a fan, as we turn off the switch of a ceiling fan, the fan continues to move simply because of the momentum that it has built up. And in the same way, our minds, we have been thinking, we have been stimulating it with all forms of news, social media, the playing and replaying of conversations, events from the past. All of these continue to fire up the mind, energize the mind, and create this incredible momentum of speed, just like the moving fan. But through our awareness, we simply reach for the power source and switch it off. And we observe the movement. But it's a little bit more calm now. Because whereas at one point we believed ourselves to be the blades of the fan, now we have become the space in between the blades. We have become the space underneath the blades and above the blades, and we observe and we watch as the blades gently only begins to slow down. But now we know, we understand. And so we no longer feel the need to stick our hands through and in between the blades, attempting to stop them. We no longer continue with conversations and dialogue with the mind, but simply step back into the state of awareness, the state of presence, where we can watch, we can observe, and perhaps most importantly, have that much needed rest. Feel yourself breathing a sigh of relief, just what it feels like to let go, to come to this realization, to come to this understanding. And that's all today's practice is about. My voice is not important. because you already know how to get into this space. You know how to tap into this space. What's important is that we are sitting together, because together we create a momentum. A momentum into this moment that we have come to know as our present moment, this now moment. Outside of the blades of the spinning fan, and outside of these movements of the mind and its hundreds, sometimes thousands of memories and thoughts and anticipations and projections into the future. Too many, way too many, and so we step outside of it. And that's all my voice is going to be doing for you, for us today. My voice is going to find different anchors into this present moment. You can choose to listen, but if you're already there, you no longer need to listen. And so every time you get lost, if your volume button is still on, if you find yourself getting lost in the thought process, in the stream of thoughts, reach out for my voice. And like a little lifeline, it will bring you back into this moment. One of these anchors that we will use today, a very precious tool that we have at our disposal, our breath. And so see if you can gently pull your attention. A pull, now that's a word that seems to imply effort, doesn't it? So we don't want any effort. Redirect. Let's redirect our attention, our awareness towards the tips of our nostrils. So we can very gradually, it's not going to happen immediately, but we can gradually begin to experience our relationship with air. And right now there's only one aspect of this relationship that we are interested in, and that is how we experience it as it enters in through our nostrils. The experience, the sensation, the temperature. How can you tell its temperature which surfaces within the nostrils are feeding this information back to your brain about its temperature, about the velocity and the speed at which the in-breath is traveling. How deep up into the nasal passage can you still experience this movement? How, as you breathe in, the wall of your stomach rises. Feel free to even place your hand and your fingers on your stomach to experience this incredible process. The rhythm, the movement, the stretching, the ballooning. Entirely absorbed in this process that we call inhalation, the in-breath. And bringing a similar level of interest and curiosity to the very same relationship with the air as it flows out of the nostrils, down the nasal passage. The temperature. Its level of humidity. How it's the tiny little water droplets that make up this humidity. The miracles and changes that are occurring within our body. With every breath we take in and release. Each breath anchoring us deeper and deeper and deeper into the stillness of this moment. For some of us, we still continue to notice how easy it is for the momentum of the mind to carry us. But we smile, just reminding ourselves that this isn't a very serious practice. We don't need to take it too seriously. Gently guiding our minds back to the breath each time it gets carried away, each time for the first time. Beginner's mind occurring at every moment, so that every intake of breath becomes the only breath. Every moment becomes the only moment. Using the breath as a bridge, rather. That passage, the nasal passage, the windpipe, that runs through our throat, where we can sense this breath moving in and out, down and upwards. Allowing our breath to now be a bridge between this world outside of us and the world within. Perhaps for a brief moment, noticing what it's like outside. There are different sounds. No matter how quiet your environment is, you may detect something very faint in the background if you're near your kitchen, or there might be traffic outside, or the humming of the fridge. There's movement, there's change. And then there are the sensations that you can experience within and around your body. The way your body is interacting with your seat, your chair, your mattress, wherever it is you find yourself. Your bones, your muscles, the way you're seated, your posture, all of this in the outside, almost constantly changing from moment to moment. And most importantly, the thoughts, sometimes surfacing and sometimes fairly quiet, but observing, noticing these movements. And so there are so many changes, so many movements in this world around us, this world outside of us. And if you are a visual person, if you like metaphors, then let us see the surface of the sea, the surface of the ocean. Everything above this surface, let it be all of these things that we just experienced, the body sensations, the movement of the mind. Just like the surface of the ocean, there are countless waves, each one taking a different form, moving in a different direction. And then, of course, above the surface of the ocean, there are the winds and the clouds. And this is perhaps a nice time to remind ourselves that in this practice, we're not here to control the waves. We give permission to the waves to be as they are. It's too tiring trying to control them. So we become aware of them. The wind, again we give permission. Sometimes very stormy winds, very strong winds, gray clouds, those emotions that sometimes feel quite uncomfortable, anger, pain, and all those other emotions that we have come to experience as less than desirable. We allow them to be. We're not going to criticize ourselves for having them, for experiencing them. Just like the winds and the waves, we give them permission. And now we bring ourselves back to our breath. The breath that also becomes a bridge at this particular moment, and we follow the breath inward under the surface of this ocean, under the surface of this sea, under all that movement, under those waves, and we dive into the stillness within. Each in-breath carrying us deeper and deeper. And deeper. Underneath this ocean of stillness, we can go out as deep as we like. We can still look upward. We still see the movement. We still see the play of light as the rays of sunshine somehow create magical lines as they fall upon the surface of the ocean. But everything seems so much more still, so much more silent, so much more quiet, so much more kinder. We find less need to judge all that is happening at the surface level. Whatever we experience at this moment within our minds, simply allowing, making peace with all that we are experiencing. Reminding ourselves to breathe. Reminding ourselves to to continue aligning our mind with our breath, this incredible bridge that somehow manages to lead us into this space of stillness. As we find our bodies supported by the waters around us, let us loosen, relax, and simply let go of all those pockets of tightness that we may still find within our body. Simply letting go, knowing that our bodies are supported. Knowing that at this point we depend very little upon gravity and therefore we can rest. We can relax, even our bodies. And as we find our bodies entering into this slightly deeper state of relaxation, as we relinquish control over our bodies, let us bring into our mind's eye the image of a light. This light representing our immune systems. This light being filled with oxygen, inching its way through our bodies, perhaps starting with the toes, the feet. We're simply surrendering our bodies back to the intelligence within every cell of the body. This light, which represents our immune system, inching its way upward through the ankles, the calves, the knee, both right and left, the thighs, the whole pelvic region, the stomach above it, and the digestive system within. This light of awareness, this light of intelligence, this immune system seeping its way upward into the chest region, where all those vital organs sit and simply rest. This light bathing the lungs, the beating of the heart, the various other organs within, inching its way down into the arms, both right and left. Maybe pausing for a moment around the elbows, lubricating, relaxing the elbow joint. Into the forearms, the wrist, the palms and the fingers and the back of the hand. inching its way back upward into the neck. And then the whole face, the skin around the face, the flesh within the face, the muscles within the face, the forehead, the scalp, the ears, and underneath all of that, the skull and the brain, all bathed in this light which has come to represent our immune systems, this light that will keep us safe, that knows how to repair, that knows how to heal. And finally, this light reaching the back of the neck, the back of the skull, and then inching its way downward through the spinal column, which somehow contains incredibly vital fluids which aid in our immune system, which somehow aid in our movements, our coordination. This light bathing the spinal column. Our whole body filled with this light. And we quickly scan through our bodies just to see if we are still wrestling with the immune system. Are we still trying to regain any control of any particular part of the body? Every worry, every stress, every anxiety somehow translates itself into some occurrence within the body, and so we simply release intentions that we want to surrender everything. Now that we're not even worried about gravity, bathed in this light that's filled with oxygen, filled with nourishment, filled with anything you really want. Our body's beginning to feel lighter and lighter, and therefore rising back to the surface of this ocean. And so filled with oxygen that we simply allow the waves to carry us. The gentle waves. The waves are very gentle now. And so we simply lie here basking in the sunlight, basking in the sunshine, needing no effort at all, no need to do anything, but simply being, relaxing. And as we open our eyes, as well, in this meditation that is, and we gaze up onto the sky, we begin to notice the clouds, different shapes, different speeds. These clouds that have come to represent our thoughts of different shapes, different sizes. Observing, noticing. occasionally mistaking ourselves to be those clouds through habit. But patiently, lovingly, kindly, each time stepping back, gently noticing the gaps between the clouds, noticing the space underneath the clouds and above the clouds, and stepping back into these gaps, into this space that surrounds every cloud. Perhaps being less perturbed, less disturbed by the content of each cloud, by the shape of each cloud, allowing them to simply float past like little pieces of cotton wool, harmless. No longer trying to hold on to any of them. In a moment, you will hear the sound of the bell. And this is just going to be an opportunity to stretch your body, to move your body, to find a new posture. And if you don't want to move, that's absolutely fine as well. But for some of us, we're not used to sitting for these lengths of time. And we remind ourselves that this practice is about kindness. It's about being kind, learning to be kind to ourselves. And the very fact that we've taken this time to be here together is perhaps a beautiful indication that we are being kind to ourselves. You can stretch your body. You can release any tightness that you can still feel within your body. But most importantly, you can bask in any sense of relief that you may experience as a result of this practice, as a result of your movements. And now in this part of the practice, why don't we continue with some of these anchors that will help us to step outside of our thought process. Let's do this with our bodies. Let's, for the remaining few minutes that we have together, let's see if we can use our senses as doorways out of the mind, out of our thoughts, and into the stillness of this moment. you may find that if you still experience problems right now, it's simply an indication that we're still being carried away by some of these thoughts. But we're grateful. Just because when we experience problems, it's almost an automatic assurance that we've stepped into the thought process. And so even though we may be in this present moment, we're still in this particular point in time thinking about some moment in the past or projecting ourselves into some moment in the future that may never come. And so when we find ourselves doing that, this part of the practice will show us how we can simply through our senses, our sense of sight, our sense of hearing, our sense of taste, our sense of smell, and our sense of touch, each one of these doorways leading us back into this moment. Let's begin with the sense of touch. The sense of touch which we often associate only with the tips of our fingers. And so perhaps why don't we begin with the tips of the fingers? Where are your fingers right now? Your hands, they may be on the desk, on your lap. They may be facing each other. But what we're curious about is what they're experiencing. They might even be numb, perhaps a little bit damp and sweaty. But whatever it is that you're experiencing is exactly what you should be experiencing. Because this is your experience, this is my experience, which will never be duplicated by anyone else. Let's feel this expand throughout the surfaces of our body so that we very gradually, very gently, we begin to, you can roll your shoulders around a little bit and so gently become aware of your posture, the placement of your shoulders, the way in which, again, your spinal column, how it supports your whole upper body, how your neck supports your head, how your pelvic bone supports your upper body. And then, of course, those points of contact between your body and the surfaces underneath it. And if you have a chair with a backrest, the backrest supports you or is in contact with your shoulders, your shoulder blades. I'm assuming that you're seated on a slightly soft surface, which may be completely wrong, but if it is seated on a soft surface, noticing how that surface supports your body, how its cushion appears to mold itself to the shape of your body. How your body balances itself. And then simply give permission for these sensations to expand to the surfaces of skin that surround your body, your arms. For me, the exposed areas of skin would be my hands, the back of my neck, my face, my ears, all of this interacting with the air around me. And so I can feel the temperature. Can you feel the temperature of that space that you find yourself in? And I don't know whether you have a window open or if you have a fan in your room, which would make the interaction between the air and your skin more vivid. Or like me, if your windows are closed, then it's going to be very subtle. You may experience subtle movements in the air, or it might just simply feel very, very quiet, very still. But there is interaction between the skin and the air molecules around us, even though we may sometimes not experience it. But let's also call that an experience. Let's also call that our experience at this moment. And then our pieces of clothing. We all know what our clothing looks like. We know all about colors, about what textures look like. But let's experience this relationship between our skin and these individual fibers of clothing. The weight of the fabric. All of these actually quite neutral until we filter these sensations through that instrument that we call our mind, with all its memories, definitions, classifications. And then suddenly we find ourselves feeling the fabric as soft or rough, warm or cool. We're simply here to observe, notice how these meanings arise, these definitions. Observe, noticing, breathing, experiencing. And then the sounds around us. I know I can't hear what you are hearing at this moment, but what can you hear? The sounds that are near, the sounds from within your bodies, perhaps even detecting the sound of your beating heart if it's silent enough around you, the sound of your breathing. And then there are the sounds from outside, from your neighbors, from the streets, from that space outside. And then there is the sense of smell. And then the sense of taste. Perhaps tasting nothing now, but for me, I have a cup of coffee next to me, so I can taste that slight bitterness, the creaminess that's still left in this space through which I experience my sense of taste. So for each one of us, it's so unique, so different. Each one of these doorways into our present moment. And in a moment when you open your eyes, it will be your sense of sight that will be your doorway into this moment. Seeing for the first time. Perhaps the first thing you will see will be your electronic device, the electronic device in front of you, which we've become so used to just because when we live in our mind, we live in memories. What we see gets transported straight into the memory. And so we forget to see how incredible this device is. It's like a window into the universe, a window into the world, a window into different countries. Seeing for the first time, beginner's mind, the miracle of it. Our ability to even tap into telescopes far, far away, which will show us sights into galaxies and different parts of the universe. Seeing for the first time the space around you, your room, the light coming in through your windows. Grateful. The different colors, the different shades. Each one of these opportunities to step outside of the thought process. In a moment you will hear the sound of the final bell for today's practice, which I hope will bring our beautiful practice to a very gentle and a very mindful close.